Welcome into your Wednesday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano from Locked On Leafs, and I got both the Locked On Senators guys with me today. As per usual, Ross Leviton and Brandon Pillar also going to join the show today as we kind of go through some of the biggest, we're going to look through the first week of the NHL season, see the biggest disappointments, biggest surprises. So all that more coming up on today's edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, your team every day.
Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen on this Wednesday, October 19th. The show is free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube, where the best way you can help the show grow is to subscribe to the Locked On NHL channel and leave a comment below. What is your biggest overreaction after the first week of the NHL season? If you can hear it in my voice, for me, it was getting to be at the Canadian Tire Center for the Ottawa Senators home opener last night against the Boston Bruins, but it's also time for a scheduling update, as now the Eastern Conference edition of Locked On NHL will be on Wednesdays instead of Tuesdays going forward. Excited to have Brandon Pillar by my side live and in person. And we got Mike DiStefano remotely from the heart of the province, but not our nation's capital, where we are. Mikey, let's start with that Sens Leafs debrief. Last time we spoke, we were leading into the first week of the season. You got the better of us. We'll give you that.
Yeah, I would say so. Came in with the victory, but, waking up that morning with the whole Matt Murray news kind of put a bit of a cloud on that entire day and on that entire game. But, Samsonov came through with a pretty solid effort. I think it was a good battle from both squads. And I think I heard DJ Smith even come out and say the next day it was kind of the first time since he'd been there that it felt like they were really in that game. They had won a lot of games, but Toronto more so lost those games by shooting themselves in the foot. Felt that Ottawa actually kept up with Toronto, and I think I'd agree. I've been pretty surprised. But you guys were at the home opener last night where apparently the Senators just waited for all of their offense to come in one game. Boy, that must have been quite the showdown last night against the Bruins.
Oh, yeah, it was an absolute blast, Mikey. I mean, seven goals from 7 different players. That's when you know it just takes a little time to get the offense clicking. And some home cooking never hurt anyone, especially when you have a sellout crowd over 100% capacity in the CTC. And it was a good timing for the Ottawa Senators to face the Boston Bruins. As we all know, they are plagued with injuries to start this season, and the Sens were lucky to catch them on the second half of a back-to-back.
Not only that, but they bring out Daniel Alfredsson to drop the puck. And obviously there's been a little bit of a shattered relationship between him and ownership in Ottawa. And it almost felt like a real turning of the page. There wasn't a dry eye in the rink when Beautiful Day started his old goal song, and it just carried through. 2 goals in the first 3 minutes, Mikey, and it took Claude Giroux 30 seconds of home ice time. In his first shift, he gets his first tuck. Or second tuck, he got one in Toronto, but first home tuck with Ottawa. So, yeah, you can probably hear it in my voice. I take credit for personally chasing Jeremy Swayman from this game after 2 periods. Yeah. Well, I mean, it should have been 4-0 in the first period, but I guess we'll let that goaltender interference call stay. But no, it was an exciting time. And I mean, it just really, after the last number of years with the pandemic, I know you've been at both, if not,
all not 3 so far. Yeah.
There you go. Well, man, how nice is it, the feeling? I know masks were pretty much required at the start of last season. That kind of dwindled off, but just a full atmosphere of a complete capacity. Sports are all about sharing and being together, and that's what it's all about. So it felt normal last night, and that was a great place to be.
I wish I could say the same, but Scotiabank Arena, not as much as a ruckus as it seemed like it was at Canadian Tire Center, especially after during the game against the Coyotes, where it just did not go well. The Leafs. I mean, I don't really.
What happened?
They lost. Let's just leave it at that. They lost the game. And they've lost every game in regulation for the last 20 years also to the Arizona Coyotes. One of those wild stats that's out there. But, it's good to be back in the building. Jokes aside, it is great. I know fans are excited to be back, full capacity arenas, and hopefully we don't go backwards anymore and we can keep it at this rate. And hopefully Toronto will have a little bit more to celebrate over the next couple of weeks here. And, it could be just as ruckus as it was in Ottawa last night, or Canada, I guess, not Ottawa.
Yeah, the Canadian Center certainly was a ruckus, or huge crowd, and everyone was feeling it. I feel like it seems like this week, and I don't know about you guys, we can kind of shift to more of a broader league-wide state. And I guess we could start with the Leafs, though, Mikey, is injury season is really heating up here. Unfortunately, obviously, you never want any injuries, but you start with the Matt Murray one. Now, Jake Muzzin, it's not looking great there. Gabriel Landeskog, he's out for a long time. Our former Sen,
Connor Brown.
So many big injuries are happening here. There's a couple more that I'm blanking on right now, but I guess we can start with from the Leafs perspective. What's the feeling when you start the season and one of your top goaltenders, Matt Murray, the Matt Murray experience, unfortunately, Leafs fans are starting to understand what that was like for Sens fans. And then a big part of your back end, Jake Muzzin, goes down as well.
Well, it didn't help. I got a phone call from this guy over here right beside you right away saying, "Ooh. I told you it was going to happen. I told you so." And here we are. Yeah, you did. One game in, and the Matt Murray injury problems start to persist. And, it's unfortunate, right? Like, Kyle Dubas clearly – took a gamble, rolled the dice on this kid, hoping that he could try and stay healthy. Because when he's been in net, even you guys can say, like, he's been a more than adequate goaltender. The problem is those starts are often few and far between just because he's consistently, on the mend. And, after one start, it's kind of tough, especially the night you're supposed to play your former team to end up back on IR. And, like, it went from he left the ice to all of a sudden he's on LTIR. He's done for the next 10 games, 4 weeks. He's out of sight, out of mind. It's now Ilya Samsonov's show. I think the problem for Toronto, though, is like, now can you really trust this guy that he can be healthy when you need him to be? Like, if he went down after one game, can you trust him come playoff time, right? That was the sell. At least this guy wins playoff games. He's brought the Pittsburgh Penguins to a Stanley Cup before. But if you're Kyle Dubas, do you have faith that he can stay healthy not only throughout the regular season, but in the playoffs when you're going to be relying on him to show up and be a playoff caliber goaltender? That's, to me, the biggest issue when it comes to this whole goalie situation now in Toronto, is there's some broken trust between, Matt Murray and the fan base, and Matt Murray and management. And I'll be curious to see what ends up happening with him. You mentioned Jake Muzzin, also another injury that occurred against that game against Arizona. There was a bit more of an update on it today. He was placed on IR. It's a neck injury. There's some mixed messaging coming out about that, though. It's really bizarre. Sheldon Keefe was saying that he was doing a team function last night. He was out with the guys. He was feeling full spirits, feeling all right, feeling himself. But then you've got Mitch Marner, on the other hand, who's best friends, apparently, with Jake Muzzin. He considers him his best friend on the team. Not only after the game in Arizona, saying, he's got to think about his future, his health, for his family, his kids, his wife. And then he came out and kind of doubled down on that today after Keefe had said, what he had said, that he seems to be okay. It's going to take some time, but it just seems like there's some mixed messaging going on there. So I'm honestly perplexed as to what exactly the injury is, how long this injury is going to be, or when we will see Jake Muzzin in Maple Leaf uniform again.
Well, if the playoffs started today, I'm kidding, but we are going to talk about some overreactions getting in after we're 3-4 games into the season, everyone in the Eastern Conference, and every team has at least one win, and we still have 3 teams looking for their first loss, or looking to avoid, I should say, their first loss. But we're going to tell you a quick word from our friends at BetOnline before we get into all the new stats analysis surrounding the Eastern Conference after a week and a little bit of NHL action. BetOnline is your home one-stop shop for everything you need when it comes to sports wagering. Pilsy, we did all right against BetOnline last night, didn't we?
Yeah, finally a good night for the Sens on the sports gambling side of things. But hey, there's more than just betting on the Sens and betting on hockey. That's the beauty of betonline.net, is they have all the best props, scores, totals, unders, player performance props, whatever you like, they got it. And you can do baseball, basketball, football, MMA, golf, and more. It is the best spot, the trusted spot for your online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. And that's where we turn to, because it's where the game starts.
Go to BetOnline right now. BetOnline.net. You can get all your new stats analysis. Find all the latest odds, news, scores, and player performance props. It's BetOnline.net, where the game starts. Segment 2, Locked On NHL Podcast, your Wednesday Eastern Conference edition. I'm Ross Levitan alongside Brandon Pillar. We are the Locked On Senators podcast, and as we do each and every week, it's the Battle of Ontario. As we've got Mike DiStefano here from Locked On Leafs. Mikey, what's been your biggest surprise so far this season?
Probably the intro music into that segment. What the production we're putting together here, Rossi.
Bigger and better for the Locked On Network. Let's go.
I have to say. Okay, so biggest surprise from a positive or negative perspective?
Well, I know you're a glass half full kind of guy, so why don't we start with the positive?
I guess it's got to be the fact that the Philadelphia Flyers are 3-0. Like, who saw that coming, right? Especially like last night, they went in, got a good, hard-fought victory over the Tampa Bay Lightning, come away with the win there, and they got a tough one tonight. They'll be taking on the Florida Panthers, night 2 of a back-to-back. No Aaron Ekblad. That's another one of the LTIR places, injuries that we were talking about earlier. We could talk about that in just a moment. But I think just the fact that Philly, a team who we all expected to be kind of dog crap, to be quite honest with you, starting off the year perfect 3-0, and things look good for John Tortorella and the Flyers.
The last thing that he said before the first game of the season is our team has no identity. We don't know what we're doing. And then they go out and win.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess he was trying to pull the wool over everyone's eyes and try and catch some teams off guard, and they seem to have done it.
I guess those are just some anonymous wins then. No identity behind those wins for the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah, it looks like it. But when you look at the Flyers, what is it about their game that's really impressed you? Because, yeah, they've been scrappy. They've also been able to, go up against these good teams and stick with them. As I'm looking at what they've been able to accomplish so far, it was the 3-2 win last night over Tampa. Vancouver's having issues of their own, still looking for their first win. They got a 3-2 win over them, and then 5-2 in the opener against Lindy Ruff and the New Jersey Devils. I say Lindy Ruff because, man, my biggest surprise was probably Lindy Ruff's intro. I didn't realize he was on that hot of a seat. The home crowd booing him in player introductions.
Yeah, I don't know. That was a little bizarre to see too. And it's a good team over there. Did I not say it that I picked them as a wild card contender here?
Yeah, I think you did, didn't you?
I think I did. And if you look at the numbers too, which is why it's so funny when it's so early in the season. This is why we have this overreaction, proper reaction type of discussion. The Devils, okay, they haven't started the year off on the right foot. They're 1-2 so far on the season. But you go and you look at their numbers. They've statistically been the best team in the NHL to start the year. They've got a 71, almost 72% expected goals percentage out there so far through 3 games this year. They've got Jack Hughes playing at an elite level counter. I think there's a couple of guys out there that are playing extremely high level of hockey. Dougie Hamilton is healthy and playing over there. I think the Devils are a pretty good squad. So I don't think there'll be a lot of boos throughout the regular season. I think that Lindy and his boys will get it done.
Well, and the crazy thing about that whole Lindy Ruff situation is, Ross, they weren't just booing him during the intro. How Sens fans like to do Alfie chants or Brady chants or Zoop chants. They were doing fire Lindy chants throughout the game. And they were
how?
Chants. So the fan base is, it's not just oh, there's Lindy, let's boo him. They are going out of their way to let the Devils management and ownership know that they are done with Lindy Ruff. So the Devils head coach is certainly on the hot seat. But what I like is on 32 Thoughts, the podcast, they were talking about this. And Lindy Ruff, he didn't make any excuses. He said he took it on the chin, right? He said it is a passionate fan base. They want better. We're going to try to do better. I take responsibility. And that's a veteran coach knowing that the last thing you want to do is lash out at a fan base that already has turned on you.
Can we stop and appreciate Pilsy saying it's not like fans just see him and say, oh, there's Lindy Ruff, let's boo him.
Well, yes, who knows? Maybe there are some people out there and they're like, boo, Lindy, boo. Some old Sabres fans that just hate the guy for whatever reason. They just boo him right when they see him. I don't know. I still think they'll be able to get it on the rails. it's a bit of an overreaction, if you ask me, to be upset with Lindy Ruff and the New Jersey Devils, because I think the process has been right so far. The results hopefully will come for them.
Yeah, 1-2 for the New Jersey Devils so far in the early going of the season, with the Devils being winless against Eastern Conference teams, but then winning 4-2 against the Anaheim Ducks last night. The Ducks are having a tough trip east to start the year, and they scored against the Rangers, but the Rangers are just picking up right where they left off last spring. They've got the two leading scorers in the National Hockey League, Artemi Panarin and Mika Zibanejad, both 1-2, and I think Panarin has 10 points already. So there, and we know what Shesterkin does in goal. So I think that I'm impressed with the Rangers, but I don't think it's a surprise or an overreaction. So I think we can kind of glance by them, but I guess same probably for the Hurricanes. They're just kind of a well-oiled machine at this point. They're 3-0 as well. Now, the Detroit Red Wings for me are kind of surprising. Still no regulation losses. They're 2-0-1 so far. I like kind of the depth that they're bringing to the table. Like, you knew that they had a couple of guys who were ready to pop, but they've been able to kind of get it all coming together here with the shutout win. Yeah, it's against Montreal, a rebuilding team, but then going into New Jersey on the road and earning a 5-2 win there. I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and like the Red Wings are an interesting team because like that's a team that went out and they made a lot of offseason additions to try and kind of help those young guys improve by bringing in some older veterans. So they brought in a David Perron who's got 3 goals so far on the year through the first 3 games. They brought in Oli Mata, a veteran on the blue line, who's also got 4 points so far to start the season. Dominic Kubelik's got 3 points. So everyone who they brought in so far, Andrew Kopp, probably one of the more notable players as well, has worked out for this club. Billy Huso, the goaltender they've brought in, a .923 save percentage through his 2 starts that he's had so far this season for Detroit. So they had a lot of additions that they made this summer, and they were hoping to take a bit of a next step. I still don't think that they're a team that's there by any stretch of the imagination, but I think they'll be competitive for most of the season, and it's good to see that a lot of these new additions that they invested in are paying off for some decent early dividends.
If I'm going to stick to teams that have a positive overreaction here, I'm taking a look at the Central Division guys. And
what a rookie, this guy, Mike?
It's the Eastern Conference edition, Pillsy. We stick to the East.
Okay. Well, then I'll go back over to the East.
Tell us the team, though. I want to hear now.
No, I'm not going to do that. We'll tease that for the Western Conference here.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
I'll stick with the Boston Bruins being 3-1. Like, we got to see them.
Who lost? Who'd they lose to?
Yeah, we got to see them have their first loss of the season. But for them to start off 3-0 with the amount of talent that they're missing, when you look at basically half their back end with Charlie McAvoy, a Norris candidate type player, and then you look at Grzelcyk, and then a guy that I really like that I think is underrated, Brandon Carlo, someone that does a really great job at shutting things down shorthanded on the penalty kill. So there's 3 of your top guys out, and then not to mention Brad Marchand out as well, and Jake DeBrusk is back now, but he missed a little bit of time. So
yeah. I mean, Taylor Hall may as well be out. We didn't see him at all last night.
Yeah, he was a guy I thought was going to step up in the absence of some of these big players, but he really didn't. And
he only played 11 minutes.
Yeah.
-2.
Not a great game for Taylor Hall, but yeah, I'm going to go with the Boston Bruins as a positive overreaction. I think if they can make it to staying right around 500, I think they'd be pretty happy. So to start off 3-1, I think is definitely a big boost for them. And I don't quite anticipate that's going to stay until they get some of these reinforcements back.
So I had a question for you guys as we kind of start to look towards maybe some other squads on the other way. You've got the Tampa Bay Lightning starting out the year 1-3 to start the season, -4. They got 14 goals so far through 4 games. Did you guys anticipate that? I certainly did not.
I didn't anticipate that at all. But then you start thinking about it and you give yourself time to digest this and really take a look at this team. First, there's a lot of miles on the core players here. Like when you go to 3 consecutive Stanley Cup finals and winning 2 of those, that really puts a big toll on guys like Hedman, guys like Stamkos, Kucherov, et cetera, although Kucherov missed a lot of time earlier on. But Then you start looking at the pieces that they lose. Every single year, this roster gets dwindled down. I feel like every season in the offseason, they lose their third line. Like, isn't that what it seems like? And they lose Palat here, and they have to kind of rebuild on the fly and hope other pieces can come. But when you have four guys like a Hedman, like a Stamkos, like a Kucherov, and not to mention Vasilevsky, you usually think that you're going to be able to steer clear and it's going to be smooth sailing through the regular season. So yeah, I'm surprised that the Tampa Bay Lightning are struggling out of the gate a bit.
Hot take. They're going to figure it out.
Yeah. I'd probably side with you on that one.
And when you look at how they lost their games too, like, yeah, they got their first win in their first game in Columbus. It's kind of a tough schedule though, right off the bat, to then travel to Pittsburgh and play the next night against a Penguins team that's feeling themselves with they had won 6-2 in their first game. Then they get the same score against Tampa Bay in the Saturday night. But you talked about it when you mentioned the Flyers, Mikey, like that was a hard fought game, one bounce either way. But I guess then he spins on, it's like, should it be a one bounce game when you're the Lightning and you're taking on a lesser opponent, at least in terms of what the outside people think about what you're going to be throughout the year. But a team that's played as many games as them and they know who they are, like, there's no problem starting 1 and 2, but it does look funny though, seeing the standings, which I am usually against even looking at the standings until November, at least November, maybe even December, but it is funny seeing them right down at the bottom.
I'll say this though, like I'm just looking up now moneypuck.com just to see, how deserving were the Flyers in that victory. Not very, like they should have lost that game. The deserve to win meter had the Flyers at 33.8% chance of winning that game, and with 66.2% being the Tampa Bay Lightning. But that's why I play the games, guys. And it's funny. I know we were just chatting about Philly in a positive way, but to actually dig a little deeper into the numbers, they really have not been a great team. It seems like this is a squad that's just kind of getting some good puck luck to start the season, because their expected goal percentage, 39%, right there with the Anaheim Ducks and the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah, those are not two teams you want to be hanging around with in expected goals. That's for sure. That's tough. And I guess if I'm looking for a negative overreaction team, I'll go with Columbus here, because this is a team that made the biggest splash in free agency, even bigger than Claude Giroux to Ottawa and landing the big fish in Johnny Gaudreau. But when you bring a guy like that in and then subsequently lose a guy like Patrick Laine almost immediately, talking about more injuries that have happened here, that's really going to be tough on a squad. And that's a team that is kind of, I would put, and Mike, maybe you can touch on this, I would put the Columbus Blue Jackets kind of in the same tier as the New Jersey Devils. They have a lot of nice pieces. They've had some good drafts recently. They've kind of brought in other veterans to help bring up this core of drafted players. But similar to the Devils, they don't have their goaltending figured out. The D-core is going to rely on a lot of those draft picks graduating and becoming NHL players. And they still have some identity issues of their own too, because you look at Columbus and famously they've had the last couple of years, all their good players wanting out and not being interested in re-signing deals. Zach Werenski.
Can't relate.
Yeah, that's been a nice feeling in Ottawa. Things have changed there. But Zach Werenski is one of the guys that decided he's going to invest here. And it's looked like things are changing for the better for Columbus, but they still have a way to go here, and it's apparent with where they are in the standings.
I have a proper reaction, though. The first leaked reverse retro came out, and Columbus's are a 0 out of 10.
I would need to see this. Let me just.
Oh, you got to pull it up. I'm sure if you just type in Blue Jackets disgusting jersey, it'll come up right away.
They're not disgusting. They're just. It looks like they tried to do what the NHL did to all-star jerseys in the 90s. And
sure.
I think nostalgically, we can look back and be like, those all-star jerseys were cool because that's when we were growing up and watching hockey. But in just a plain view, those did not really work. And the Blue Jackets kind of leaned into that trend. I don't think it works personally.
Do you see it, Mikey?
I'm looking at it. I'm going to pull it up for...
All right. Well, while you pull it up, let's hit our last break. We'll get into some more disappointing news. You're listening to the Locked On NHL podcast, your team every day. I like coming in with the tunes.
I do too.
That's the intensity of the show.
You radio guys need that. I feel like coming in and out of breaks, you guys are so used to hitting the music in and out there. So for Mikey and Ross, that's music to their ears, I'm sure.
Oh, we absolutely love it. Right here.
Absolutely.
You're listening to the Locked On NHL podcast. We've got your team every day. We appreciate you making us your first listen each and every weekday. Local experts on the biggest stories. For more on the Toronto Maple Leafs, you can check out Mike DiStefano and Locked On Leafs. We've got things covered over here on the eastern side of the Battle of Ontario, and there's local experts on each and every team. But right now, it's the Eastern Conference Wednesday edition of the show, and we need to know, Mike, did you find the jersey?
I found it. Here it is.
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
I got to pull it up here. No, is it not working?
I got it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Not a fan.
No, they're awful.
I'm not a fan of those. I mean, you're right, actually, when you say this is like a 2000s/90s All-Star jersey. That pretty much is very close to what it looks like. You're right there. But, yeah, I would give that not quite a 0 out of 10, but maybe like a 3 out of 10. Not high quality.
It could be a little bit better if instead of that weird kind of flag star logo, if they went with the cannonball one. I think that could have helped out a little bit, but
yeah, maybe.
Enough. Have they ever used that color of that shade of blue in any jersey ever?
Not that I know.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah,
I'm not exactly a Columbus Blue Jackets jersey expert, if I'm being honest here.
Yeah, we'll have to ask Forster.
Yeah, over at Locked On Blue Jackets for all things Columbus Blue Jackets. My only problem with the Columbus Blue Jackets is I need more of Kent Johnson than we've seen so far this season. That kid's going to be an absolute stud at the NHL level. But when I look at disappointment so far, I mean, Columbus is an easy one because I had them last week. We did our predictions, and I had them sneaking in to that 5th spot in the division.
You did.
I know. And
you're still hanging through that?
Back for Hart, and he's got 8 points in 4 games.
Yep, you did have that one. That one's not a bad little call by you. Yeah, you win some, you lose some.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But yeah, so if I'm going a negative angle for so far in the season from the Eastern Conference, like we already talked about New Jersey a little bit. So I'm going to go with Washington. And that is for one reason is because they can't be healthy. And they came in, they're like, okay, Tom Wilson's out. Let's go get a right winger who's reliable, can play up and down the lineup. And now Connor Brown's out for potentially as long until Tom Wilson's back. So they kind of got in a bit of trouble there. And then Kuznetsov takes a suspension. By the way, no idea how that's only 1 game. What were your thoughts on that play with Kuznetsov?
Honestly, I don't think I've actually seen that.
Oh, it's wild. You got to go see it. It was a 2-hand, wasn't it?
Let me go take a look at that.
I also missed that one. Yeah, but speaking to the Washington Capitals struggles, Ross, they've also got a tough opponent on deck for their next game.
Oh, yeah? Who are they playing?
Oh, Jesus. He literally karate chopped the man right in the throat. That had to be way more than 1 game. That's brutal. Holy smokes.
Right? So Daily Faceoff, Mike McKenna wrote an article saying it should have been 20 games, not 1. I think that's probably a little much.
Pillsy, I'm going to show you this, and you're going to definitely agree with that. This should have been, I'm going to pull it up here. This easily should have been multiple games. How this was not multiple games doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Okay, let's see it. Those watching on YouTube.
Look at this. And then just karate chops the guy right in the throat.
Boom.
Yeah, that is terrible. And I think that's where, especially as a former player and Mike McKenna, you're looking at that. And anytime you are in the mode of using your stick purely as a weapon like that, that calls for more than 1 game suspension in an 82-game season, in my opinion.
That to me is an in-person, like, what the hell was going through your mind type of thing. 5+ games for sure.
Like Chris Simon.
It's embarrassing.
Retaliation rather than premeditated, though, if I'm going to bring up that name, though. That was super premeditated. Who was it? Ryan Holweg? I think he was on the Rangers, but Chris Simon, I think, got like 25 games for that. He was a repeat offender.
Years ago.
I'm just thinking of comparables where guys 2-hand someone across the face.
There's not a lot of them.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Like, Malkin had one last year. That was pretty brutal. Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't think of many that I've seen that are that
No.
egregious.
One
That's
game.
pretty bad. One game is pathetic. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
with you, man. That should have been more. How about Sonny Milano though, getting an opportunity out in Washington?
Yeah, I mean, hey, he's a guy who a lot of people were banging the table saying he should have been signed. When we did our best remaining free agents, he was in our mix there when we were drafting that. So no, I think that he's going to be fine, but like he's no Tom Wilson or Connor Brown. So I still think they're going to be struggling a little bit, and it's going to come down to Darcy Kemper though. I mean, if they're really going to be competing for a playoff spot, but one of those teams they might end up be competing for a wild card could be the Florida Panthers. Like we already mentioned, the Aaron Ekblad injury. That was already a thin decor, Mikey. Do you think they have enough depth up front to withstand what is, in very nice terms, a not so good defense?
Sorry, repeat that again.
With the Florida Panthers, already defense was a question mark. Moving Weaver, not really having a star outside of Ekblad, and now he's hurt long term.
I don't know if you saw Ryan Whitney's tweet earlier today, but he said that the decision to trade Mackenzie Weegar looks even worse now, and said that Bill Zito has ruined the Panthers. He literally said he ruined the Panthers over the course of one offseason. That's they've got 3 third pair defensemen at best. Out there, they've got Gustav Forsling as their top defender. Gustav Forsling and Mark Stahl is their top pair defenseman right now.
Wow,
that's gonna be tough, man. That's really gonna be tough. And I want to get your thoughts on this one. But on LTIR, so he's gonna be out for at least a month, you would think. How concerned would you be over the Florida Panthers without him, knowing that? It's not the most reliable guy between the pipes any given year.
Well, that's the thing. And we were watching to get ready for the Boston-Ottawa game. We're watching their highlights. They played Florida the night before. And like, that should not have been 6 goals against. Like, yes, Mark Stahl got walked by Pasta. That was a nice goal. But outside of that, there were multiple squeakers getting through Bobrovsky. Like, he's been so hot and cold since going to Florida. You got to hope he catches heat.
Even in his whole career, he's been hot and cold. It's either Vezina or bust for him. That's honestly what it seemed like it's been his entire career. Good year, bad year.
Yeah, and anytime you invest $10 million in a goalie, you probably feel like, okay, that's good. We got a $10 million guy here. We should feel pretty safe. But clearly, they didn't feel safe drafting Spencer Knight with a very high pick and signing him to a pretty big extension. Like that's starting goaltender type extension they signed him to. So this is going to be a very big struggle for the Florida Panthers. And I think anytime you go from having a President's Trophy team to doing what they're doing this year, it's going to be a fall from grace.
Look at that, dude.
Look at this blue line. Like, literally, Mark Stahl and Gustav Forsling, first pair. Second pair, Josh Mahura and Radko Gudas. Third pair, Lucas Carlson and Matt Kierstead. Like,
where's Brandon Montour? Is he out?
Yeah, he's injured too. They legitimately have 3 third pair defensemen out there.
Wow.
That's probably even generous, calling a couple of these guys third pair everyday NHL defensemen. Man, I my bold prediction this year was that the Florida Panthers are going to miss the playoffs, and I said I believed it because once Aaron Ekblad inevitably got injured, like has happened to him for the last 5 seasons, this is the last time he played a full slate. This team's blue line was just way too thin to cover up those warts, and I don't know how they're going to get around it over the next month while he's out. And hopefully they're not behind the 8 ball too much. I mean, hopefully for my prediction, but for all those Florida Panther fans out there, hopefully they can withstand it. But I'm just not so certain.
I thought you were going to say the last time Aaron Ekblad played a full season, his partner was Ed Jovanovski.
Hey, dude, it could have been. When did Jovo Cop retire? I mean, it very well could have been. Like, this was, I think it's like 17-18 was the last time he's been played a fully healthy season. That's literally like 5 years ago. So, tough days ahead, I think, over the next little bit for Florida Panthers and Panthers fans. They do have the undefeated Philadelphia Flyers in town tonight, though. So, that'll be a barn burner.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think when you're looking at the Florida Panthers too, and this is why before the season you can always get good value on whichever bets, but 105.5 points was their regular season over under before. So that, I mean, as somebody who has the under on that, I feel pretty good.
We all hammered the under, hammered it. And I don't think it's an overreaction to say so far, I think we're okay with that bet.
Which is there a player to end off that you think is going to come back down to earth? The guy who maybe has had a pretty hot start.
Who I think
we're in on pace season right now, where you know a guy has 2 goals in his first game, and you're like, oh, he's on pace for 160 goals this year.
In the East, like specifically in the East or league wide here?
Oh yeah, in the East. Otherwise, Pillsy will have an aneurysm for us not letting him get his central team out there.
I know I got like 6 Western players on queue here, but we're sticking out East.
All right, let me take a peek and let me see if I can. Because the problem is, like, I don't think anyone's really gone off, right? Like so far in the East, that's unexpected.
Well,
like,
if we're doing overreaction, AJ Greer scored again last night. He's got 5 points in 4 games. I've never, honestly, I think I follow hockey pretty well. I've never heard of him before.
AJ Greer?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been in like the Avs, like he's been with the Avs for a long time, I think. Up and down.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, such a household name. Career high 17 games in 1 year.
I'm just saying he's been around. But yeah, I mean, okay, but 5 points. Anybody could have one good game. Like I think it's too early to even look at like 3 games in. Like one dude has a 4-point game. He's more than a point per game so far. So I don't even know if it's necessarily going to come down to earth.
In the league every year since 2016, and in 4 games this year, he already has a career high in points.
Dude, Ryan Poehling had like what, a hat trick in his first ever hockey game, and then hasn't established himself as an NHLer since. So it happens. Like from time to time, all you need is one good game, and all of a sudden you have yourself a couple of decent points early on. That is, but yeah, okay. I would expect for Greer to go down. I don't know, man. Like, is there anyone's numbers? Is there a goalie that's like just absolutely lighting the lamp right now? I could answer like 60.
Wayman was before last night.
Carter Hart's the answer. Carter Hart, 943 save percentage and a 200 goals against. I mean, hopefully he's refound his game from his rookie season. He's undefeated so far this year. But, you know, as we spoke just moments ago, I don't anticipate Philadelphia being a top-tier team this year. So I don't anticipate 940 goaltending out of that group. So Carter Hart, I guess, would be the player who's riding high right now through the first week that I expect will probably take a dip.
If I'm going to go with someone in the East that I would expect is going to have a bump here that hasn't been able to kind of do what they usually do, obviously this is a homer answer, but watching Alex DeBrincat have 15 shots in 3 games and 0 goals for someone that we expected in Ottawa was going to come over here and just absolutely light the lamp. He's had his chances with averaging 5 shots a game, but no goals for a 40-plus goal scorer in multiple seasons. It was pretty surprising to start things off.
Yeah, I mean, I can also look at home too. Like Austin Matthews so far, 4% shooting percentage through the first 4 games of the year. Not what you.
One more or 2.
He's got 1, and it was like a tip that was a very lucky goal to even get. It was like a high tip that rolled over the shoulder of the goaltender and like trickled into the back of the net. So he does have a goal, but it was like the flukiest goal ever. Outside of that. Nah, still waiting for one
like
decent
patented wrister.
Yeah, no patented wrister. He's been missing the net a lot. That's been a thing too that I've noticed out of him. He hasn't been quite as crisp, and the accuracy hasn't quite been there so far. It's still early, I suppose, and he didn't get much playing time in the preseason. But that is somebody. If we're talking about someone who has been a little disappointing the first week. Sheldon Keefe actually basically called him out, saying that his elite players haven't been elite players, and there's a reason why that they're lost to Arizona. Essentially calling out Matthews, and I would tend to agree. He hasn't been elite. He's been very off, I would say, and I don't think that'll continue.
I really want to lean into Mikey more for the loss to Arizona, but then I look at the schedule and Arizona's coming to Ottawa on Saturday, so I'm gonna hedge my bets and just hold off until we see what happens in that game.
Dude, man, the Arizona Coyotes, like, they're a great team. I don't know what to tell you. Toronto can't beat them. It's not. I mean, it's difficult to beat the Coyotes. I mean, when you go there and you're just trouncing the Sens all the time,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, it's just difficult. They probably had a night off
the
town.
Harlem Globetrotters. And the Yotes actually lit up the Sens last year, so I don't know what I'm saying. Although it was Matt Murray that let in 8 goals against them in his last appearance with Ottawa.
Yeah, and that was it. That was the last of Matt Murray. And
what was the stat for Nick Schmaltz against Ottawa? Do you have 13 points in 2 games?
Oh, Nick Schmaltz was looking like Wayne Gretzky out there because he was absolutely lighting it up. And yeah, that's someone that the Senators are not happy to have come back to Ottawa. Although I think he might be injured as well. Now that I think
he is, he wasn't even in that game.
What's up with all these injuries?
Dude, I know. Jacob Chikrin, another guy who wasn't in that game, he's injured. Connor Brown, like, there's a lot of injuries, and I wonder if it has something to do with just the fact that, like, all of this hockey that's been played in such a condensed period with all the stoppages and trying to, play games within X amount of months and then pick back up, and through COVID, I wonder if it's all starting to kind of catch up to the bodies these days.
Yeah, and that's the thing. After an off season, you get your training camps in, you get a longer preseason than they've kind of been used to in the last couple of years. Maybe it's something that these players aren't ready for, and unfortunately, these big injuries are going to derail a lot of teams' start of their seasons.
No doubt. All right, Mikey, final thoughts here as we get through our overreactions of Week 1.
Keeping to the Eastern Conference, I suppose we'll do, since that's what we do on Wednesdays. I mean, I don't want to bring it back home, I suppose, so I'll try and go elsewhere. There's another team out there that I'm a little surprised, or that I've been disappointed in, that we haven't talked about. Oh, you know what it is, actually? And this is a proper reaction, not an overreaction. A proper reaction. Because I think that the best nickname in hockey was given out this week. Do you know what it is, fellas?
No.
Do you know how to spell the name Arbor Jacki?
Yes, kind of.
Right? Who the hell knows how to spell that guy's name? Because if you see it, it certainly don't look the way that it's pronounced. Doesn't seem that's how you would spell it. It's like XHAKAJ, something to that effect. There's a bunch of different consonants in there. Anyways, apparently the nickname that he's been given is Wi-Fi, because his last name looks like a Wi-Fi password that you're given when you get when you're just given it by the provider. I thought it was pretty creative.
Make it to the NHL before getting nicknames though full time. Although he has had a decent start. I think I'm still sour about the hit from behind. Gave one of the guys on the Sens a concussion in the rookie tournament. So you know what? He's a player that you love to have on your team, but you already hate to be playing against him.
Well, I mean, I'm sure Habs fans are quite happy for Arbor Jacki and what he's been able to do.
Ever since somebody told me it's Jacki, I just kind of like phonetically write it out in my head, and it's easy from there.
How do you phonetically write it out in your head?
Like the name Jack and then I.
Yeah, but it starts with an X.
No, but wait, is it phonetically where you say it how it sounds, or you write it how it sounds?
Yeah, that's phonetically word of the day. Yeah.
Word of the day. Word of the day. Word of the day.
Oh wow, you guys got some like
phonetically.
Okay. Sure. I mean, it's not a hard word to say, but you try and spell it. You go to a spelling bee and they say Arbor Jacki. You don't even know where to start. Well, no, you would start with a J, but you'd be wrong, is what I'm saying.
We don't have that one on the board yet.
No, well, I do like the production. I like the production y'all got going on there.
Man, more coming soon. We're gonna be looking forward to seeing you and David getting in the same mix here eventually. And it's this beautiful thing from Roadcaster. We appreciate them very much. But yeah, man, great first week of the season. Like, it's just awesome having hockey back and waking up. You get all the highlights in the morning. It's wonderful. I've already lost my voice because of hockey.
How about that Ilya Lyubushkin hit last night?
Woo! I didn't see it.
Oh man, he laid out Dylan Holloway. Did he ever? Open ice hit? Whew. The Leafs could use that, let me tell you. Leafs could use that.
Dude, did you see the tweet of all the draft picks that Dubas has given up and what's left?
Yeah, I saw that, but like he also acquired draft picks that weren't included in there, and they're players that were acquired in those. That was such a clickbaity tweet, honestly.
Yeah, big time, eh?
Awful tweet.
I clicked it. I was like, "Ooh, give me more of this."
No, that was stupid. Absolutely.
Calling out his best players. We got Kyle Dubas trading all the draft picks. Like,
I look, the best play, it's an interesting situation right now in Toronto. You'd think a team that's 500, it's only 4 games, are coming off of the best season of their franchise in terms of, regular season production, that is. And 4 games into the following year, and there's quite a bit of turmoil already. I wasn't expecting it, I'll be honest, but that's more content for us, in the content game, as they say.
It certainly will. And we look forward to recapturing that next week. But for today, we say goodbye. For Mike DiStefano and Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On NHL podcast, your team every day.